Welcome to a really important conversation today. I'm Todd Deatherage, and I'll be playing the role of host today, but mostly I'll just be trying to stay out of the way to allow these two really remarkable individuals to tell you their stories and to hopefully answer a few of your questions at the end. Today's conversation is with Aziz Abu Sara and Maoz Inon. They represent a collaboration. Uh, Today, we're bringing together groups called Interact, which Aziz and Maoz co-lead. Interact's mission is to build coalitions and foster understanding that leads to reconciliation in governments, local communities, and between neighbors. Telos, the organization I co-founded with Greg Khalil back in 2009, is also a sponsor today. Our mission is to build communities of American peacemakers across lines of difference to bring healing to intractable conflict at home and abroad. And the things that brings us together today is the work of the Parent Circle Families Forum and of the American Friends Organization of the Parent Circle Families Forum. For any who don't know about the community of remarkable people, the Parent Circle is a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization made up of over 800 bereaved families. Their common bond is that they have each lost a close family member to the conflict, and out of that crucible, of this uninvited and unimaginable pain, they have made the uncommon choice to pursue reconciliation. So, um, thank you to all the organizations that helped make this possible today. And Aziz and Mose, thanks for being with us. Um, the parent circle is, of course, what brings us together. We have some really incredible news to be able to announce and share with you today. So we've learned and are now able to share that the parent circle has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And I can think of no other group of people anywhere that I've ever encountered that are more deserving. These amazing individuals who've made these incredible choices and do this beautiful and important work in the world today, showing us a way forward when so much of the imagination of leaders and people in power is so corrupted and so zero sum. The parent circle is showing us a way out. So this is just such an honor. So I think at this point, I just want to start by talking a little bit about that brought you together, which is your personal stories. And Aziz, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your family and background, and about your brother, Tasir.
Thank you, Todd. And great news about the Parent Circle, which is where I started my activism and the first organization I joined for peacemaking. And I worked for as a chairman for the Palestinian chairman for the Parent Circle for a few years back in the days when I was without any gray hair. Long time ago. But yeah, so unfortunately for both Maoz and I, we are part of the parent circle because we both have lost family members. In my case, I lost my brother Taysir when I was 10 years old. He had just been released from the Israeli prison where he was tortured, which caused him internal injury, and he ended up dying after a surgery. He was arrested a year earlier from home on suspicion of throwing rocks, refused to confess to the charges, which is why he was beaten up. And Taysir was to me a lot more than just a brother. He functioned more as a parent. I'm the youngest of seven. He was a brother just older than me, was 9 years older than me. So there were no kids in between us. And so that meant when I got in trouble, he was a person who would come and help me when I needed any things with the school. I was asked to even bring my parents to the school. He would be the one who would come to school instead, which was much better than having anybody else do it. Because for him to come to school, it meant I probably wasn't in big of trouble. He empathized with me, being a student himself at the time. So that's how my story, I guess, starts. And I got to experience life under occupation very early on. I think the first time I was shot at, I was 7 or 8 years old. And then that has continued all through. So after Taysir's death, I was extremely angry. I was bitter and I wanted revenge. And that's when you're 10 years old, nothing prepares you um, to. to seek, I guess, peacemaking. Nothing prepares you to lose your brother. And I'll show a picture here. It will first show Maoz's stuff, but then I'll move it and come back to Maoz. This is Taysir and I, or I usually say this is me when I was still good looking, back when I was a kid. And nothing really prepares you for the loss. So I grew up very angry, very bitter, and wanting revenge, and that's what I did until I was 18 years old when I went to study Hebrew and was in my Hebrew class. I met an incredible teacher who it was the first time an Israeli Jewish person treated me like a human being. And she was just so incredible. I think she noticed how I didn't want to even be in that class, uncomfortable I was, and she just did everything possible, one, to make me feel comfortable, but two, to bring my story and my narrative and who I am into that classroom. And from there, I understood, I think that, it's that encounter, a few other encounters with the students, but that's what set me up on my peace journey and my peace work journey, and was the kindness of one person, and it was me crossing from East Jerusalem to West Jerusalem and meeting Israelis for the first time. And I think realizing that this division of us versus them, Israelis versus Palestinians, is a terrible binary, and it's a wrong way to look at things. It should be those of us who believe in justice, equality, and peace, and those who don't yet. And so from that moment, I understood that the best way for my work, for activism, is for us to work together. And that's soon after is when I joined the Parent Circle.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mose, can you tell us a little bit about your family and your parents, Yaakov and Bilal in particular?
First thought, it's an honor to be here with you and with all the and of course with Aziz. It's only our third meeting today, and with all the 400 something people in the audience. And today more than ever, I'm proud to be a member of the Parent Circle. And like you say, Todd, I think there is no better organization worldwide to win the Peace Nobel Prize. So hopefully we're all gonna celebrate from our loss and pain and the hard work that we are doing on a daily basis in the coming year. Maybe before sharing about my family, I would like to share a moment that we described in our book. On the third day, we are visiting El Azaria, Aziz's childhood hometown, and we are sitting in Aziz's living room, Aziz's family living room. And Taisir photo is on the wall. And Aziz, earlier before in the book, Aziz called himself the oops child of the family, being born like 9 years after his brother. And in my family, so I would like to share now a section, a paragraph from the book. I was 8 years old, almost the same age as Taisir would have been when my family oops child was born. I had three sisters, and from the moment my parents told us they were having another baby, I wished for a little brother. We, four siblings, made a deal with my parents that if the baby was a girl, my mother and sister would get to choose her name. And if it was a boy, my father and I would name him. I will never forget the day my aunt Irit, my father's young sister, came to tell us that our mother had given birth to a boy. I cried tears of joy. On the day my mother was to come home with the baby, my father took me with him to the hospital. On that day, we chose the name Magen, which means shield in Hebrew. At the hospital, I held my brother for the first time. He was swaddled in a blanket and sleeping soundly. He looked so tiny and peaceful. In that moment, I made a promise that I would always keep him safe. I held Magen in my arms the whole way home. It was the happiest day of my childhood. looking up at the portrait of Taisir that was taken just days before he died. I knew in my heart that he had felt the same on the day Aziz was born. Taisir had looked out for his little brother the way I'd always looked out for him again. I knew how proud he would have been of the man Aziz had become. I turned to my friend Aziz and said, Aziz, the day you were born was the happiest day of Taisir's life, and he was proud of you till the day he died and beyond. And that's also still about my parents. They were supporting, loving, listening parents, always giving us the option to rise, to bloom, to follow our dream, and also giving us the freedom to make mistakes. My father, Yacobi, was a farmer, the manager of the farm in the kibbutz, an agronomist, and actually he was the best farmer in Israel. That's we have facts for that. I have way to prove it, but I'm not sure if we'll have enough time today. And my mother Bila was an artist, and in the last years she was painting mandalas in her studio in Netiva Asara, where they lived for 30 years. And her studio was open to children, to youth, to adult, to elderly people, just to come and paint, and to get into the spirit of the harmony of the mandala painting. My both parents were kibbutznik. My mom was born in kibbutz Ruchama, uh, which is only 10 kilometers away from kibbutz Niram, where my father was born. Kibbutz Niram is only a mile away from the border in Gaza. And when they got married, they moved to my father's kibbutz, where they raised my sister Mo, who is now stepping in the big shoes of Aziz as the co-chairman of the parent circle, and my sister Maayan, and Magal, and my young brother Magen. And at the age of 14, we uh, we had a vote if we should stay in the kibbutz or move out of the kibbutz, and it was an open vote. Everyone could vote, and we voted to move out. And we choose to move to Netiva Asara, the nearest Israeli community to the Gaza border. And my parents, they died when my father was 78, my mom was 75 on October 7th. They were among the first victims of the Hamas attack. And only during the Shiva we realized why they stayed and lived there in Netiva Asara, which was far away from their 11 grandchildren. We are living between Tel Aviv, Herzliya, Binyamina, and Magen, the young brother in London. So we encouraged them to move closer to us. In Israel, living 1 hour away from your children, that's a long distance. So we always encourage them to move closer, but only during the Shiva we realized that they were among the pillars of their community. They were admirable by all, if the founding people of the community, but also among the young generation. And that's exactly why they stay, and why they drive back home after celebrating the second eve of Sukkot in Tel Aviv with the family. And they reached home at 7:30 after midnight on October 7th, and quarter to 8 Saturday morning, we lost contact with them. That was the last time I spoke to my father.
Mm. Oh, thank you for sharing. These beautiful people that we just are getting to know through your stories today are just these reminders of how in this time of sort of mass violence and so much destruction in the world, there's these individual stories, individual lives that are that were robbed of their beauty in the world and all the creativity that brings. And so thank you for sharing those stories. I mean, you've both come together into a deep friendship. You've written a really beautiful book. I was privileged to get an early copy of it to get ready for this, and I almost read it in one sitting because it was hard to put down. It's hard to write a book, but it's really hard to write a book with someone else, and I'm sure. So I would love to know a little bit about your friendship and how you really came to be so close. You've said in your TED talk that you feel like you've gained a brother in this work. You've traveled together. You've organized peace events together. You've done your TED talk, as I mentioned. You even met the Pope together, and you're now doing this book tour and continuing to just pour yourselves out over and over again, telling these stories around the world to anyone who listen. So, can you tell us a little bit about that journey toward your own relationship and friendship and what that has meant, and maybe talk a little bit about meeting the Pope?
Yeah, maybe I will start as this is a short introduction or answer to the question, and then you will take care. Um, when we heard the news that my parents are gone, it was Saturday afternoon when at last someone from the community pick up the phone because all through the day we tried to reach their of course themselves, no answer. Their neighbors, their friend in Netiva Asara, no one answered. So only 4 in the afternoon, someone picked the phone and we told him, tell us what happened. Tell us the truth. We don't need to soft it, a delegation. We just want to know what's going on. And he told us that my parents' house is burned to ashes and there are two bodies inside. We have decided to start a Shiva. First thing Sunday morning, it happens to be the first Shiva of the war of October 7th. And I'm sharing it's not as a metaphor or as a lyric or description. I was literally drowning in an ocean of sorrow and pain. And when Aziz reached out to me, offering his condolences to me and to my family on Tuesday morning through a messenger, because even though we met and we come from a tourism background, entrepreneurship, but we met only briefly in 2014 at the Abraham Hostel in Jerusalem, but we had tea together and become Facebook friends. But that's it. We haven't heard from each other for nearly a decade. So when Aziz reached out to me, it was literally like a hand reaching out and saving me from falling into the abyss.
Wow.
And now I'm saying, and through the work and co-authoring the book together, that I lost not only my parents, I lost childhood friends, I lost people I knew my entire life. And now I'm saying it, and then I went through the list of names of people I knew my entire life, and it's too long. It's just too long. But I lost them, but I won Aziz. And I won Aziz as a brother. So Aziz, we forgot to hug at the beginning, so I'm sending you a huge hug, a huge hug and love. And thank you for who you are and not for me and for my family. You are muted. You are muted.
I was
Sorry.
trying not to disrupt you, so that's why I'm muted myself, so I make sure I don't keep making stupid jokes in the wrong time. No, but I say that the greatest part I think about this is the two of us see each other as brothers, as Maoz mentioned, but also I think it was if almost now a year ago, Maoz and I went to do a talk together in Jaffa, and I met some of Maoz's cousins, aunt, and one of them said, "Oh, this is a new family member that we had about me," which so the reality is our families adopted each of us as a family member as well, which is beyond just the two of us seeing each other as brothers. But adding to that, I think one of the moment you know somebody, and I think loss, people in the parent circle obviously know this, loss really brings you together. And but not only loss for us, it's loss and then it's vision. It's being on the same path to what we're trying to achieve, is really having the same goals, having the same values, having the same interests. That's what brought us together, and that's what built this relationship and has made us as strong friends and brothers as well. And then when we did our TED Talk in April 2024, and then a few weeks later, we ended up in Verona meeting with Pope Francis. I got a photo for that.
Yeah.
And there are better photos where we hugging him as well. But in that conversation, he referred to us as brothers. And we didn't tell him to, we didn't ask him to. He just said, these two brothers. And the way Maoz and I see it is Catholicism. We've heard there's no divorce, so the two of us have holy matrimony right now in brotherhood. And so we stuck together forever, and it's a good kind of stuck together.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Well, and this relationship is the cement that holds all of these things together, and it's so important. But I also want to talk to you for just a second about reconciliation in the context of of an overall system of injustice. In your book, I noticed that you don't at all shy away from the asymmetry of the larger reality, even as you refuse to engage in some kind of like competitive suffering at the personal level. Can you talk about how to do the work of reconciliation? We're in a place where like violence takes many forms, and when there are systems of occupation and control in place that have to be addressed to actually make the work more serious and durable and not injurious to people who are being harmed by a really unjust system. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because it's really like the book is really honest about all those things in a way that I thought was really is part of what makes it so profound and beautiful too.
Yeah,
Aziz,
I'll
yeah, start.
start.
You start.
You'll you'll finish. The name of the book, by the way, is "The Future is Peace." It's the easiest name of a book to to remember, and we wanted to write an honest book that tells the history of 100 years of conflict, but also tells it through our own personal story. So you're not reading a history book. We wanted to read almost like a novel that's telling the story without making it difficult for you to follow and having to do references and so on. So it's our story, the 100 years of conflict. And we wanted to bring also stories of biblical stuff, Islamic, Jewish, Christian stories, and mythological stories like the Medusa, for example. And we bring in those stories where it fits into conflict and peace and into a future that is based on peace and equality, justice, peace, equality. So all of these together. And one of the things we decided from the beginning, we're not gonna paint a picture that is not real. We will talk about the problems. We'll talk about the issues we're facing. We will bring the different narratives, the Israeli narrative, the Palestinian narrative. We will interview people, and we brought voices of people. Like, I'm not in Gaza. I cannot talk about Gaza myself the same way that somebody is there. And so we brought two people who were in Gaza to tell some stories and to tell us what was going on in there. And it's very difficult to read that. We brought somebody from the West Bank. We brought so different people to talk about those systems of occupation, the violence, the loss of life, all of those. And we brought people who disagreed with us as well, because it's important that we don't only tell our story and then don't talk to people who might be skeptics. So we try to bring all these stories without silencing any of these narratives. And at the end, I think it weaves it beautifully to saying, here's a reality. And because of this reality, not despite this reality, it's because of this reality, we are working to make the future much better and to have a future that is peace.
It's good. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will share maybe Todd how we wrote the book and the structure of the book, because both of us are coming from the tourism industry and we are experienced tour guide, and definitely Aziz is an amazing storyteller. I try to learn from him. Also, I try to learn from him how to make jokes, but I don't have much success there. So the book, we are inviting you, the readers, to join us on an 8 days shared journey across the Holy Land. Each day is taking place in a different location, and each day is a chapter of the book. So in total, 8 chapters. And we start with Niram and Netiva Asara and speaking to Aziz's friend in Gaza. That's the first day of the despair, of the bloodshed, of the destruction. And then we go to Jaffa, Tel Aviv, the Palestinian National Movement and the Zionist Movement, East Jerusalem and Lazaria, where I shared a paragraph with you. The old city of Jerusalem is the fourth day. 2 days in the West Bank, and 1 day in Nazareth, and the 8th day in the Galilee. And then we are exploring those dimensions, those layers of mythology, theology, biblical conflict, and the people we meet, and we share their honest testimonial. So we didn't censor, we didn't silence anyone that we met. We let them share their narratives, and uh, there is space for everyone. We are not competing on pain. We are not competing on sorrow. And we also share the journey Aziz and I also took together in the last 2.5 years. And that's how we found ourselves in Geneva a few months after the war started with 70 other Israelis and Palestinian peacemakers, bereaved families, reconciliation experts. And we said, let's leave the past and the present outside of the meeting room. Let's see if we can find a common ground for the future. Because if we, peacemaker, won't be able to find a common ground for the future, then we are doomed. We are doomed. So it was very difficult 3 days, very difficult, a lot of tears. And then we made it. We achieved our common ground for the future, equality and dignity, shared acknowledgement and recognition, reconciliation, Todd, reconciliation and healing, security and safety. And for someone like myself, that I'm a new member in the parent circle, I'm not familiar with this terminology, with this mindset. I didn't know what reconciliation even meant. But now I know that reconciliation is something we can choose to invest in if we want to prevent others from suffering the pain we suffered when losing loved one. And if we do want, and we will, achieve security and safety and equality, we must start investing in reconciliation. Reconciliation is a process. It's not easy. It needs a lot of difficult questions. Maybe Aziz can share about that. Difficult questions, not to ignore, not to shy away those difficult questions, difficult hard dialogue. And that's when reconciliation already start to happen. When we are looking to each other in the face, when our tears start meeting the tears of our friends, of our colleagues, or of our former enemies and others.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, Robbie Damlin with the Parent Circle always says that reconciliation has to be a part of any framework for a political agreement, or this just it's a pause on the conflict unless you're actually building in these kinds of projects and work and relationship and all the practices you've described about listening to the stories and the narratives and then incorporating all of that. It's really beautiful. So you've kind of already answered this question, but I know people will still say to you, you're just being naive, where there's so much that's on fire and so much history and so much that's happened. And so many people have a single narrative of this in a way that says you're being naive. How do you respond when even it could be friends and family who tell you that you're being naive in what you're doing?
Aziz, if you are
I said, Maoz, you should start with this. You
okay,
will like this answer better.
what yeah, what we prove in the book, and that's what history literally prove, that wall, and I'm my parents are the proof. Wall will never defend, bombs will never bring quiet, and war will never bring security. Those who believe in those false statements, they are the naive, because they failed all throughout history. When the wall that was literally shadowing my parents' house was less than quarter a mile from the border. And when the IDF and the government built it, they also canceled the emergency IDF unit that was based opposite of my parents' house. And they told them that this wall will defend them. It's starting from satellites up in the outer space to drones to balloons to maybe 15 meters like yeah, 15 meters, you will do the math in feet, a concrete wall, and then also going dozens of meters down to the ground. And they promised them that it will secure them and will defend them. But of course, it failed. The only thing that will achieve security and safety, and again, that also been proven all throughout history, is dialogue, negotiation, compromising, and building trust, investing in reconciliation, achieving equality. Because when there is no equality, there is no justice, and when there is no justice, people, unfortunately, choose to resist in a violent way. And when there is violence, there is bloodshed, and then we are entering this cycle. We Israelis and Palestinians are trapped within for a century. And Aziz and my work, but also the Parent Circle and many other amazing civil society organizations that we are working together now more than ever. Maybe this is what was changed since October 7th. So now the peace movement is much more synchronized, much more sharing knowledge, resources. Um, so that's the only way to achieve security and safety, and it's proven again and again. So it's so easy to prove it because only eight months ago, the Israeli government declared that they brought the nuclear project of Iran decades to the past. But of course, and the same with the Hezbollah, and the same Hamas is still in power in Gaza, and that's because the only thing they are using is tools of distraction, military force, and it will never bring security. It never brought security, and it will never bring security.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry
I'll,
for the long answer.
I'm gonna read something somebody wrote in the comments. Ariel wrote, one of the first thing Maoz did after the shattering loss of his parents was to appear in Democracy Now! With tears streaming down his face. He was begging Israelis and the US and the world not to retaliate by harming people in Gaza. He was begging all of us, no, 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 to further violence. In that statement, I knew him as a soul sibling and my hero. And I think this is the answer. Maoz, in the beginning of this war now in Iran, I told Maoz I'm frustrated how many people are supporting the war. Like, what's wrong with them? And he said the difference between us and them is a few weeks. In the beginning, everyone's like, yeah, it'll work. And then a few weeks later, slowly people start realizing how ridiculous that idea. And I already can see some of my friends who are posting online how great this war is are already posting like, okay, maybe it's not so great. Maybe it's the goals we all want is not going to happen through another war. And that has been the reality, though. Like in every war, we don't need to wait until so many people killed, so many innocent people killed, before we understand that actually believing in war is the most naive thing because it doesn't work. It hasn't worked in Iraq. It hasn't worked in Libya. It hasn't worked in Syria. It hasn't worked where in Vietnam.
Vietnam,
It
North
hasn't worked
Korea.
in it hasn't worked in Rwanda. It hasn't worked in like where did violence has worked? It is not, it is absurdity, I think. And when often when I tell people, they say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And if I tell them I work in peacemaking, they go, "This happens too many times." They like kind of jokingly go, "Well, how's that going for you?" Like, well, you haven't been successful. But the truth is, there has been more success in bringing peace and ending conflicts through peace in the last 100 years that has been through war. And even if I'm not successful, if you meet somebody who is, let's say, a cancer researcher trying to find a vaccine for cancer, which we haven't yet discovered, we close, but we haven't. Do you tell them, how is that going for you? Haha, what a failure. We don't do that. We say, so how close are we? What can we do? How can we support you? That's what most of us, any normal person would do. So why do we not treat conflict, war, violence in the same way that we treat cancer? Because to me, war is a disease and it's a proof of a failure of a humanity. And until we start treating violence and war as a disease, we're not going to be able to solve it. So that's one of the things we do in the book is we talk about violence is a disease, is a human disease. And it's not a natural occurrence. It's not like a volcano. It's not like an earthquake that brings damage. It's something we create. And if it's something we create, it's something we can stop and solve as well.
That's so well said. Yeah, that's really powerful. And the way in which um I mean, I think we can, out of our own experience and our kind of reading of history and our own traumas, we can imagine that the world is such a dark and dangerous place. The only thing we can do is to respond to it with force and violence, and we get trapped in that kind of corrupted imagination about what actually is possible if we think very differently and if we think about our neighbors in a very different kind of way. We'll talk a little bit more about moral imagination at the end because you guys have some really good things to say about that. But I mean, in all of this pain, and these horrible things have happened to you and are happening to so many, anger is a very understandable and appropriate response. And one of the things that you wrote in the book, Aziz, that I found really powerful was you said anger is like nuclear energy. You can use it to create light or to sow destruction. You can allow your pain to twist you into bitterness, or it can become fuel for empathy and human connection. And this reminds me of one of our Telos partners in Montgomery, Alabama, an African American woman named Callie Greer, who lost a son to gun violence and a daughter to a really broken American healthcare system. And she spends all of her time now working for a more just reality for her community in kind of all these different ways. But one of the things she says is very similar to what you've said, Aziz. She says, "Don't waste your pain; it costs you too much." And that's really what I hear you saying. And I hear both of you both saying and doing that. But can you talk a little bit about anger and how you see that? Because obviously there's so much that just to be angry about in your lives. How do you respond to that?
I just want to say first that that part you just read is something I learned from Ramil Hanan and Bassam Aramin, who I hope they are here. If not, sending them
Yeah.
big gratitude for the many things they've taught me during the years and being amazing partners and friends. And this is part of it, is I think you overcome a lot of that through having partnerships and you having people in your life that there are days that are more difficult than others. There are days when you read the news and you feel furious and angry and upset. And if you don't have a strong community around you, it's impossible to do this work. You can't do it. But in the same time, we do this work because of the pain around us. When I called last week, I called a friend of mine who's in the book, Abdul Rahim from Gaza. And I was asking about his family, and I was asking about, his parents still in northern Gaza. They live in a room of their destroyed house in a tent. The room has a tent in it. This is a family, by the way, that did very well before. They owned a factory. They weren't a poor family in Gaza. They were, an upper middle class. And now they've lost everything. And every time I talk to him, I ask him if he still supports the work I do. And every time he says, the work you do is the most important thing. You need to keep doing it. Despite 50 people, more than 50 people in his family being killed, his aunts, his sister's husbands, one of his sister's kid died in her hand being shot by a sniper. Uh, and he still says, no, you need to continue to do this work. And he's a lot more angry than I am, and he's lost way more than I have. And yet, to me, having somebody like him remind me why it's important to continue to do this work and having his support and having other people in our community support why organizations like the Parent Circle, like combatants, like all of these groups are so important because they create a community that helps us continue in this work.
Yeah. I thought if it's okay, anger is something we feel comfortable to speak about, and we say that
Yes.
it's a legitimate, it's a human behavior and human feeling. But I would say that also revenge is a human feeling, and it's legitimate feeling. And if we don't talk about it, and if we won't work with it, then it's explode in a devastating way. So, and for me, revenge was something I knew more than reconciliation because, okay, revenge, you want to revenge. What happened to you? To those who you feel are accountable for making that. And it was thanks to Aziz and Hamza Awad, another good friend and Palestinian peace activist, that I learned the power of forgiveness. That I can choose to forgive those who killed my loved one if I want to save myself from the destiny they choose for me. If I want to break from this prison, and it's a prison, believe me, I've been there. It's a dark, it's cold prison of revenge, and it eats you from the inside. And the only way to get free, or one of the way to get free, is to choose forgiveness. Even though those who killed your loved one didn't ask for it, they are not listening and they don't care. We ask forgiveness in order to save ourselves from falling into this abyss and into this hole that within in us. And some people or some nation, unfortunately, think that by revenging, they will fill this hole. But exactly the contrary is what happening. The hole within us is getting bigger and bigger till it's big enough to be our grave. And but if we don't want to speak about revenge and give it legitimacy, and now definitely mostly when I'm speaking to youth groups, I ask them, are you seeking revenge? What do you think you will accomplish by that? Do you know my where it will take you? And this we're also using many poems in the book because we believe that poetry is the essence of humanity. And for me, the most powerful poem that really saved me after October 7th and transformed me was a poem by a Palestinian poet, Taha Muhammad Ali, Revenge. And he was 17 during the Palestinian Nakba, and 48, he lost family members, all their property was gone. And he based himself and he found a hometown in Nazareth, a city that I love very much. It's the seventh chapter of the book, maybe one of my favorite chapters. And he wrote a beautiful poem that says that it starts that he is inviting for a duel, the man who killed his father and raised his home. And then he said, but even if I will win, I won't kill him, even if I could. And he said that I will just ignore him when I'm passing by the street, as ignorance by itself is a kind of revenge. And for me, and I was honored to receive this poem from Usama, the son of the late Palestinian poet. And for me, that's something, again, it's a life-changing reading. So anger, revenge, this is exactly what we need to do in our classrooms, on the dinner table, with our family members, colleagues. We must ask those difficult questions. We must ventilize those feelings, and from with poetry, with biblical scripture, mostly from prophets, we can also find the answers, how to overcome, how to counter those feelings of anger, of revenge.
Thank you for that. I think you both are modern day prophetic voices. So thank you for being those. And you're speaking into a time in which there is so much in the world that feels like it's spiraling and out of control. And there's so much dehumanization, and you're rehumanizing the whole complex dynamics for us in your both in your relationship and in your work and your message. the book was written in the aftermath of October 7th, and it was written while this massive onslaught in Gaza of people and infrastructure was happening, and the displacement of 2 million people. And one of the most poignant stories I found, Aziz, is one that you wrote about when you told the story of your friend, Dr. Deatherage, who went to Gaza and was horrified and nearly speechless by what he found there. And yet, while there, he found people holding on to their own dignity in the face of all of this dehumanizing and work that was being perpetuated on them and all this humanity, and saying things like to him, like, after the war, you have to come back and taste my mom's cooking. Um, and that just really struck me about how important it is to be doing this work of rehumanizing people that have been dehumanized. How do you think about what you're doing in that way in terms of just helping people reclaim their own humanity? Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah. Yeah. That part of the book, I wrote it, and I still, when I read it, I still cry because it's I think one of the most moving part. And Thaer is a storyteller. He's a doctor, but he's really even, I assume he's a really amazing doctor, but he's unbelievable storyteller in the way he told me about what happened to him being a doctor there and what he witnessed and the way he captured people humanity. And I think when we hear about what happened in Gaza and 70,000 people have been killed, maybe many more that we still don't know about, and hundreds of thousands have been injured, 2 million have been displaced. But honestly, that doesn't move people because even when you think of people as victims, it doesn't move you. It takes away their humanity.
yeah.
And what Thaer did, he told stories of people, and he brought back the human element that this is a person who had hopes and dreams, and this is a person who's just like you and I. And when you give a name and you give a story and you give their quote, what they said, when he told me many more stories. I wasn't able to fit all of it in the book, but when people come to him, one of the stories in the book, and they say, "Come and join us and eat with us," and he knows they have no food, join them, and they would let him eat before themselves, knowing they'll be hungry by that, and he's refusing to eat, but he also doesn't want to insult them. And that those kind of stories of people who lose so much and still resilient and still generous and still protecting their humanity. When I think of what I wanted people to know about Gaza, this is the stories. You already know the numbers from the television. You already know the news. You already know about the pain. But what you don't know is a human who lives there. And I remember reading, actually, I heard it in a talk by Dr. Jean-Paul Lederac, who's a conflict resolution expert. And he said, when you're in a conflict zone, war zone, it doesn't matter how horrible things are, there's something every one of us can do, which is tell a story. Tell a story about those who are there. And that's what we try to do is you tell a story. And that's something everyone here, the 400 people in this conversation, we all can take with us a story and share it to somebody else. And from somebody else it'll go to another person. We can't depend on Fox News telling our story. We can't depend on Israeli or Palestinian news outlets. We cannot depend on anybody else but ourselves. And if we start telling those stories and we pass it around, that's how we create a change among our communities.
I think that's so important. And I want to give time for a couple of questions. And we're about out, but you mentioned John Paul Lederach, and that was kind of a place I wanted to land this because Lederach who's this, practitioner and scholar of peacemaking, often talks about the importance of cultivating an imagination, a moral imagination, he would call it, for a different world, about acting in a way that suggests that a different way is possible. And you guys really, I mean, the title of your book, kind of tells the direction you want to go, and you end very powerfully with that. At the very end, you write, "We don't need to convince everyone that what the solution is. We just need to convince them the solution is possible, and then we just continue to pursue it. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of like reminding people that we're not stuck or trapped in a way that there's no way out, that we don't live in a deterministic universe, that our actions matter, and that like living differently has the possibility to bring change. Can you kind of give us a little bit of your insights on that, and then anything that's giving you hope right now, and then we'll go to people's questions.
I'll try to be to the point. What I learned in the also in the last 2.5 years, but it's related profoundly to my experience as entrepreneur, as a businessman in tourism and others, is the power of dreaming, of imagination. And I realized that the most important field for humanity is the field of dreaming. It's different. It's not the battlefield. It's not the political field. It's not the business field. It's the field of dreaming. This is the superpower that we human have, and we should exercise it. We should use it, and be proud of it. So this is exactly where Aziz and I and the peace movement, the Israeli-Palestinian movement, we positioned ourselves in the field of dream. We are dreaming of a better future, a shared future, equal and just future, and we are also creating hope. Because hope, like we are talking a lot, and this is what Aziz and I basically, this is our work maybe, to create hope. And we share in that in our TED Talk, what is the formula to create hope. We must envision a better future together with others and act on a daily basis to make this vision into a reality. And this is exactly what It's Time Coalition is doing. 80 civil society organization that in the end of April, April 30th, will do the People Peace Summit, where we're expecting thousands and if not more Israelis and Palestinians to come together to manifest, to exercise, to model peace, to model reconciliation, to model brotherhood and sisterhood. So there are so many organizations, and again, and I think I usually give our first example is the parent circle, of course, but this of the parent circle you all know. But there are other amazing organizations that are working with partnership also with the parent circle, including our own organization, Interact. So we are all in creating an ecosystem that create hope and building a better future for all people.
Thank you. Imagine if those of us from the outside that are sending all these resources into your reality, if we directed even a fraction of that toward the organizations you've named, into the people doing the work you're doing, and to the things that would allow for a different reality there versus sending it for the way we do it now, which is so counterproductive. So thank you for that. Aziz, did you have anything you want to say before we go to some questions?
Can you say that? No, I think let's go to questions so we can get enough of them.
All right. Well, let me throw out a couple or three here in the interest, and we don't have much time, so you can kind of decide which of these you want to answer. Someone asked, I assume you've had disagreements from time to time personally with each other. How do you handle serious disagreements between the two of you? That would be fun to know. A lot of people are asking about addressing the current violence in the West Bank and how to approach that with a nonviolent reconciliation kind of approach. And then people are asking, what can we do to help? In addition to financial support, what can those of us in the U.S. do to help your work? And it's not just the U.S. that's represented here too, so around the world.
Trying to remember which one do I want to answer. So I'll start. I forgot the first. I remember the second and the third already.
Disagreements between the two of you is the first
yeah,
one.
there aren't that many, sadly. It's a problem. Maoz and I have to figure out something to answer this one better. We disagree on when we travel together. So I'm a night person. He's an early morning person. So we disagree on that. We disagree on music, but we don't disagree on values. So we actually don't have much disagreements. We might disagree, but it doesn't lead to conflict. So we haven't had big fights over politics and things like that at all. which we need to figure out a
To
better
work on.
answer to that, Maoz.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
second and third, uh, I think there's a lot, and the West Bank and the third actually they go together. We One of the things Maoz and I believe in is coalitions. We don't believe in one organization being able to solve everything. We don't believe in one person being able to solve everything. And so something everyone can be part of and something I'm working on right now with a few organizations and it will enlarge as we figure out the how exactly it's gonna happen, but we're looking at bringing as many people as we can for the olive harvest into Palestine to help with the olive harvest, especially from the Jewish communities, but other communities, not only the Jewish community, Arab or European and Christian and Muslim and whoever, atheist, anyone is welcome. And the goal is to bring many, many, many people. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people should come. You bring attention by being there. And so this is one thing I'm looking into, Interact is looking into, and a few other organizations in the States are talking about it. And then what people can do, I think a few things. One, we already mentioned, amplify those voices. I think, it'll sound like I'm putting a plug for the book, but it's really a plug for the movement. Don't only get this book for yourself, get it for somebody you think needs to read it. It might be your state assembly person, it might be your pastor, rabbi, or imam, it might be an influencer, it might be a journalist that you think should read it. Think about who needs to read this kind of message, who needs to hear this kind of message, and get it for them, gift it to them. I think that would be an incredible. Think about where should we go? Where are the places that communities should invite, whether it's Maoz or I or people like us who need to come to your communities and speak about these topics. So I think that's also important. Spreading the word, spreading the message is very, very powerful. And so the more we can do out of that. And finally, if anybody wants to come, Maoz and I are taking a group around the book, what we've done with the book, the story of the book in October. And so you can come and join us as we go around in October, uh, telling the story of the book ourselves in person. So we would love to see you with us.
That's amazing. I'll
Yeah,
see you in DC.
yeah, I will add, yes. So we have the book tour also coming starting on April 15th, and Lior is sharing the links. But each one of us can bring another friend to become a friend of the parent circle. So if we are here 429 people, about 900 were listed. So 900 people are gonna receive this recording by mail. Many of you are already here. Share it with 10 more people, family members, colleagues. Someone say that in his shul is the only one that believe in peace and equality. Share it with your rabbis. Share it with your community members. So amplify the voices, and this is exactly how we reached, how we met Pope Francis. We have the same conversation with a Italian journalist, and she asked us, Maoz, how can I help you amplify your message? And of course, we told her, get us a point, a meeting with the Pope. And few weeks after, few weeks, it was 4 or 5, we met Pope Francis. So each one of you can do a little bit more. I'm not saying much more. And if each one of us will do a little bit more to promote, to act for a just future, for reconciliation, for equality, it will happen.
Thank you so much. This is not a time to be silent or complacent. It's a time to lean in, and you've given us some good
Yes.
things to do. Thank you so much, Aziz and Mose. It's been just an honor to be able to be in this conversation with
So,
you.
Todd, if I can just say again,
Yes.
otherwise our publisher would fire us. It's very important to create a momentum for the book. The book is being published by Crown Publishing House. It's the most prestigious publisher in the US, part of Random House Penguin. The more pre-orders we'll get, the bigger momentum we'll achieve with online bookstores, street bookstores, a sales team, and it also will send a very clear message and demand for the policymakers that there is a popular demand for peace. So if our book, The Future is Peace, will be a bestseller, everyone will speak about it and everyone will want to join us, to join the movement and to actually make sure that peace is not only the future, but become our present.
Thank you. That's such a good word. Buy the book, buy it for
And
someone
review it.
else.
And
Uh,
review it. As soon as you get it, review the book. And Todd, I look forward to your review online.
you'll get it. I promise. This is great. Thank you so much. And congratulations again to the Parent Circle on this
Yes.
nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. Again, so much deserved. I'm so grateful to be a part of this today. Thank you all so much for joining. And you'll hear more from Parent Circle following with all the resources and things that I think that have been named here today and a lot of ways to stay involved and stay engaged. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Awesome.
Shalom,
Thank
salam,
you.
peace.
Peace.